The scriptures can do a lot of things for us. They can comfort us. They can teach us. They can give us insight into Jesus or some aspect of the spiritual life. But what I always hope they'll do is disturb us, even when I don't want to be disturbed. It seems like when the scriptures disturb us, they're working. In that little prayer before Mass, I wrote, help us to listen with closer attention to your scriptures and let them change our hearts. If we just listen and then walk out and nothing's changed, we haven't really let them in, And in light of the scriptures this morning, I want to talk about tithing. Most Catholics think tithing is a general word for anything they give in the offertory. But biblically, tithing was something very specific. 10% of one's, we would say, income today. It's, back then we were talking about crops and animals, etc., And that 10% was meant to be your first and your best, because your tithe was what you gave to God. And remember, we might ask, why does God ask for a tithe? Remember last week, or maybe it was the week before, I don't remember, but I talked about God not needing us, not needing anything from us. And so God asks for something from us, not for His good, or God commands things, not for His good, but for ours. And so clearly God doesn't need our money. And so God commands the tithe in the scriptures, not for His good, but for ours, or for theirs. And to put it again into some more context, what should really bother us are these two widows in the scriptures. This first widow, Elijah comes and sees her, and he asks for a drink of water. She says, well, I'm in it for a cake and or a piece of bread. And she says, well, I'm just going that to now. I have enough flour and enough jug for one more meal, and then I and my son will die. We have no concept, really. We can think about it, but I don't think we're ever going to completely understand her situation. I mean, in our time, we have friends, family, we lose our job, we can get another job, or this day and age, you can depend on the government to give you all the money you want. And so, but think about it. If you had enough to eat one more meal and then die, and then someone comes along, clearly a man of God, and says, look, why don't you use that for me? Bake me something to eat. And we can hear his requests in a lot of ways, but clearly he's a man of God, and he's known as that. And she knows that. And so what I hear in this rather outrageous request is God inviting her to trust him. And indeed, Elijah says, well, make me that cake, and your jug will not go empty or dry, whatever, the flour will not empty out. The jug will not go dry, and indeed it happens. And then this other widow in the gospel. And Jesus notes what she does and remarks that She gave not from her surplus, but from her substance. And so many of us Americans, and I don't know, maybe it's the same in other places, I don't know. But so many of us figure out what we can really afford to give or what might be kind of appropriate, and we give that, you know. Here she is again, giving everything she had. And the other troublesome thing about the scriptures is that Jesus' comment reminds us that God does not think the way we do, you know. Because Jesus looks at her and says, she gave more than everyone. And it makes me wonder, how she'll be received in heaven, you know. And again, our motto, of course, we see in the letter to the Hebrews. The phrase that caught me this week, as the author is writing about the high priest who entered to give sacrifice not with his own blood. And it caught me because it reminds us Jesus, of course, gave his own blood. Jesus was asked to give everything by his Father, and he gave it. And so in the scriptures, we're clearly in a realm of thinking different than our normal way of thinking about our money and our resources, our lives. And I want to be clear, I'm not asking you to give more money to the church. This is not a money talk. This is a tithing talk. And I'm actually not asking you to increase your tithe. Here's what I'm asking you to do. Take that bulletin home that has all the readings on it and read these readings again and really enter into them. Let them bother you a little bit. Let them bring you to asking some questions. What do I give to the Lord? Am I tithing, or am I just deciding what is, I think, is a pretty decent amount to give? You know? And the idea of tithing can be disturbing, but the reason it's disturbing is because it requires us usually to trust in God. I remember years ago, before I started tithing, I was living on less than a shoestring at the time. And I'd kind of figured it out that I could eat every other day, and that's what I could afford to do. You know? And then the Lord comes in different ways. The Lord suggests to me that I should start tithing. And I said, Lord, I couldn't afford to tithe. I'm going to eat every 3 days, you know, or something. But eventually he got me to start tithing. And after a while, I do remember the day when I realized, I was talking to somebody about it, and they were saying something about their fears about it. And I realized that at one time I thought I couldn't afford to tithe, but after I started tithing, really, I realized that I could not afford not to tithe. My material life, I don't know, seemed to work, and my spiritual life grew. And if you're not ready for a 10%, I might suggest this to you. First of all, pick a percentage. So it's something objective. So you're not kind of making up your own mind here and there what I'm going to. Pick an objective amount that makes you live up to it. And I would pick an amount, whatever your percentage, pick an amount you think you can do, and then add a percentage or two. In other words, decide on an amount that makes you a little uncomfortable, makes you a little worried. That way, you need to start trusting in God. And as you take these readings home, imagine You talking to one of these widows, what would they say to you?